Great Bend, Kansas, and found a permanent home in Indianapolis in 1961. It's a place that has seen the young lions of the sport mature into seasoned veterans. This week, the event has attracted 150,000 fans and has a posted purse in excess of $1.5 million. As good a racer as you think you are, you have not arrived until you have won here at Indy. John Force is the reigning Winston Funny Car champion, but has never won here. The same is true for Pro Stock champ Darrell Alderman. Kenny Bernstein has won here in Funny Car, but never in Top Fuel. So today, the quest for the most coveted single victory of the season begins again. There is nothing quite like it. It is the National Hot Rod Association's U.S. Nationals.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Joel Myers, and welcome to Indianapolis Raceway Park as we get together today for the oldest and by far the richest race in drag racing history. It's the U.S. Nationals. It's the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Kentucky Derby all wrapped up in one. And if you were to ask the competitors in today's race which one they would like to win the most in the season-long series, without a doubt, it'd be the U.S. Nationals. Every year, great stories and interesting developments surrounding this race. This year, it's no exception as we check in with Steve Evans.
Joel, everyone who follows drag racing, even remotely, knows that a funny car like this one is not as fast as a top fuel dragster. They are the kings of the quarter mile. Well, 99% of the time, that's true. There's a big exception here at the U.S. Nationals and the talk of the pits. That's the funny car driven by Jim White. Yesterday, the final round of the Big Bud Shootout, Jim White won $50,000 of the John Force, a great elapsed time of 5:16. The speed, 288 miles per hour. The second time this week in the car ran 288. A new national record and faster than any top fuel dragster here forever at the U.S. Nationals. The bad news maybe though, a few minutes ago in round number 2 of competition, it was Jim White against Al Hoffman. Jim White won it at 5.21 seconds, but smoke out of the car. They're repairing the engine right now, and Jim White, everyone is wondering, have you heard this combination?
No, the combination's fine. We've got plenty of parts, and we're just getting ready for the semifinals.
Your crew chief, Wes Cerny, said you burned a cylinder head. Everybody thinks the power is in the heads.
Yeah, but that's not the whole secret. There's a lot more to this combination than just the cylinder heads, but the surprise is we have more cylinder heads.
All right, see you in the round of 4.
Thank you, Steve.
For the big story on Top Fuel, let's go to Big Daddy Don Garlitz.
Well, Steve, as qualifying got underway here at the U.S. Nationals, it was Joe Amato who immediately took command. He started off with a 495 low qualifier, took that engine out, put another engine in for the next day, and ran a 499. No other car was able to dip into the 4s. But when the smoke cleared from round 1, it was Eddie Hill with a brilliant 496. He stepped right up to the head of the class, and it looks like we've got a challenger. Now, as we head into the second round, Eddie, I have noticed that as this race has progressed, every run you have stepped this car up just a little bit, being ever so conservative and careful. Are you going to be able to continue with that type of performance?
It looks like we've still got a little left in the car. It looks pretty safe from smoking the tires at every point on the track, really. So if we play our cards right and don't do something dumb, maybe there's a shot for us here.
Well, there you have it. But I've got to remind you that Eddie Hill doesn't face Joe Amato to the final. He's on the other side of the ladder. And in between Amato and that are some pretty tough competitors.
And it's time right now to begin competition with the second round of Top Fuel. And what better way to start out than the 2 best teams in Top Fuel drag racing right now. Kenny Bernstein, the Budweiser King car over in the far lane. In the near lane is Joe Amato. Joe Amato has won the last 16 out of 17 rounds of competition. There is his crew chief, Tim Richards. He would have a perfect score had not Bernstein beat him with a quicker reaction time just 2 weeks ago in Brainerd, Minnesota.
And it's a much bigger race for Kenny Bernstein because he is trailing Joe Amato going into the race by 1,600 points, Steve, in the season-long battle.
Bernstein has won 5 national events this year. He qualified number rated at 506 and beat Tommy Johnson Jr. earlier. Amato qualified number 1 at 495, and he booted Scott Coletta out of competition in round number 1. Amato has been on a tear, winning 3 of the last 4 NHRA national events, and that's really where his points advantage has come from. There's Kenny Bernstein as they stage these 5,000 horsepower machines.
Well, Steve, Kenny Bernstein has not run well at this event so far, while Amato has been a standout. It's now or never.
Side by side. Look at Bernstein. He has upset Joe Amato by a full car length, the 5:05 elapsed time to a losing 5.10. He was off the mark first as well. Don?
You have proved that anything can happen in drag racing. Nobody thought anybody could beat Joe Amato.
Yeah, well, it looked that way, Don, but, you know, we had to step it up a little bit, but we didn't show it to them all yet, just enough to win the turkey.
Dale Armstrong got very excited when the crew chief for Kenny Bernstein, but something definitely went wrong with Joe Amato. Not characteristic of what we've seen from him in this race. We continue with round 2 of the top fuels. You're looking at a veteran. That's Dick LaHaye, who has the lane choice, and LaHaye matching up with the Mongoose, Tom McEwen.
Now, neither of these cars ran real well in round 1. McEwen smoked his tires getting by Cruz Pedregon.
Let's go down to the far end of the racetrack now and check in with Steve Evans.
Joe, you and Kenny are great friends, but fierce competitors. That hurt.
Well, you know, Steve, we were running good. You know, I messed up. I overstaged. I had to back up, and it threw my concentration off a little bit. And, you know, he's going to be right there. And the car fell off to a 510 a little bit. But, you know, I got to get all the credit over here for not being aggressive on the line, I guess. You know, I was aggressive, but I just wasn't, you know, didn't get at the light. What can I say?
Thanks, Joe.
Well, after a 495 and a 5 flat in round 1, there was something more wrong with that car than just the driver.
So Dick LaHaye, who beat Jim Head in round number 1, getting ready for his next match with Tom the Mongoose McEwen. And earlier, Steve Evans had an opportunity to talk with the owner of Tom's car.
It's rare for a big leaguer to have a day off this time of the year, but here is Jack Clark of the Boston Red Sox. And Jack, you got to be a bit concerned about your car going into round 2 after what you saw in round 1.
Well, that's true, and it didn't really run very good all weekend in qualifying, and there's a little glitch or a little problem that they haven't been able to figure out. Everything seems to be perfect, but they can't seem to quite find it. But after this last round, they think they've got it now. They found a little problem, and the computer was giving them the wrong information, and they've got that straightened out. And if with the right information with Larry Meyer, and they'll get it working. They'll be a lot stronger the second round.
A lot of smart on this Jack Clark team.
Well, as they get ready for round number 2, Big Daddy, it appears now that something's wrong with Dick LaHaye's car.
Yes, it looks like a little oil has dripped out of the engine. It's on the drag strip. Not very much oil. Perhaps a crewman will wipe it up and they'll let him run. He doesn't seem to be able to get it stopped. Nope, they're not going to be able to fix it. It's going to be a single.
What another lucky break for Tom McEwen. Let's recall in round number 1, he smoked the tires all the way down the racetrack. There's still some question as to whether the car was ready to meet a driver the caliber of LaHaye, who had qualified number 2 at the U.S. Nationals. McEwen has the track all to himself, and he shuts the car off. It shook violently coming off the starting line. Rather than abuse the car, he shuts it off, much to the disappointment, really, of Jack Clark. They were hoping for something far better than that. Dick LaHaye, utter disappointment.
This is NBC's Sports World, and today it's brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Goodyear, the unanimous choice of all professional NHRA world champions, from Top Fuel to Pro Stock Motorcycle. By Budweiser, the king of beers, with that clean, crisp, cold taste, nothing beats a Bud. And by Fram oil filters. Fram, you can pay a little now or a lot later.
Welcome back once again to the U.S. Nationals. We're looking to the pit area of one of the hottest rookies right now, the hottest rookie in the funny car division, who's won 2 national events this year, Del Worsham. They're getting ready for the big matchup with John Force, but back to round 2 in the top fuel, Steve.
And Joel, both of these drivers have been struggling lately. Frank Hawley in this beautiful blue car from Miami, Florida, owned by Darrell Gwynn, a past U.S. National champion himself, up against Don the Snake Prudhomme. Now, Prudhomme qualified number 5 at a 5:03. That's his best time so far of the event. He beat Laurie Johns in round 1. Hawley qualified much better, number 4 to 5:02, and he dropped Gene Snow in the original stanza. But neither of these drivers, Don Garlitz, has been able to get much past round 1 the last 3 events.
They sure haven't, Stephen. Hawley has had a problem in that the car's been running pretty good, but he's been a little late on the lights.
Well, that can be driver or the clutch setup on the vehicle, or a combination of both. It's Hawley near lane, Prudhomme in the far lane. Round 2, top fuel, the U.S. Nationals. Prudhomme loses traction. Prudhomme shuts it off. Frank Hawley with a very nice 5.03 elapsed time and a huge speed of 284.99 miles per hour. Let's have another look.
Well, this is a classic example of what happens when you come into a round and your performance is off. Prudhomme was not up to the 502 from Holly's previous round, and the crew just gave it too much clutch.
So we get ready for the next matchup in round 2, and there's Fuzzy Carter, the crew chief for Eddie Hill. They had that great time in round 1. Another example of a veteran, Steve, that has never won here.
But he's got his best ever chance today. Witness that 496, and he's up against a rookie in Top Fuel. 4-time winner in the alcohol funny car class, Pat Austin. He and his family purchased the entire racing assets of Gary Ormsby. He is debuting in that car this weekend and has qualified and looked very good, Don Garlitz.
Well, Pat Austin has certainly got his hands full with Eddie Hill. He's never looked better. Now, I noticed that Pat Austin's burnout's a little better than it was. When he got here, he could hardly make a burnout with this car. Top Fuel is the most difficult learning how to do that particular procedure. The engine wants to rev up too high as 8,000 or 9,000 RPM, and that's very destructive.
Well, it's something, Don, you learn with just more and more seat time. Practice makes perfect.
That's exactly right, Steve.
So the veteran against the rookie, Eddie Hill, who qualified 3rd with a 502, going up against Pat Austin, who runs in his first national event. And even with the early success, it's a difficult weekend for the entire crew.
On Wednesday, just as the U.S. Nationals was getting underway, the drag racing world learned of the death from cancer of Top Fuel champion Gary Ormsby. Since the early 80s, when Gary and crew chief Lee Beard first began to make their mark in the Top Fuel ranks, Gary has been respected and admired by racers and fans alike. The 1989 season, despite 2 devastating crashes, was the pinnacle of Gary's racing career. He won the Winston Top Fuel Championship, culminating a season-long battle with Joe Amato. A very private person, Gary confided the facts of his illness only to longtime girlfriend Susie Hoops, whose quiet strength was there for Gary until the end. Drag racing has lost a champion, the team has lost a leader, and we have lost a friend.
None of us can relate to the pressure that Pat Austin is undergoing right now. And let's not forget about the pressure on the other side of the racetrack from Eddie Hill.
Oh, absolutely. Pat Austin, in all his years of sportsman drag racing, has never faced anything like this for a multitude of reasons. Austin in the far lane, the green and white car. Everybody knows the bright yellow car from Texas of Eddie Hill, one of the most popular drivers on the circuit. Austin with a brilliant start. It's Austin at half track. And at the finish line, Pat Austin's 505 defeats Eddie Hill's quicker 498. Don?
Well, Lee, I'll tell you, considering the trauma that you've been through, your performance is outstanding.
Well, Don, as you know, it's very emotional times for me here. I'm trying to do the best job I can. It's very, very difficult. You have no idea how this has affected me, and I have a good team, and they're doing most of the work and allowing me to make the minor decisions that are making our car perform today.
We're all with you, Lee.
Thank you.
Pat Austin achieved a reaction time off the starting line that few veterans are capable of. Have a look, Don Garlitz.
I think what happened here, Eddie Hill went to the line with that 496 and was so overconfident. In the other lane, Pat Austin, the rookie, he knew he had to make a move early if he was going to beat Eddie Hill, and he made one of the best reaction times I have ever seen. Hill was trying to catch him at the end, as you can see, but it wasn't near enough.
So a great hole shot by Pat Austin, and we now have our semifinal pairings with Tom McEwen, who has not had a real good run so far today, going up against the rookie Pat Austin. And in the second semi, Kenny Bernstein against Frank Hawley. And in that one, Hawley will have the lane choice. Steve?
Well, it still says Gary Ormsby on the windshield of this car, and Pat Austin, you were picking up in the reaction time department where Gary left off. Your 505 beat his 498.
That's drag racing Castrol style. Gary did a great job, and if I can do as good a job as him, we're going to win a lot of races.
They have declared war on Top Fuel.